A teenage girl walks into a corporate boardroom and stops a billion-dollar merger with just one sentence. What she discovered in a forgotten folder could bring down an empire. Where are you watching from? Comment below and let's dive in. The room fell completely silent. You signed that document, sir, and your company takes the fall. Those words, spoken clearly and without hesitation, cut through the glass-walled boardroom like a razor. Everyone turned, stunned. There stood a girl, 16, sneakers 2 sizes too big, a janitor's badge around her neck. Her name tag read, Natalie Reyes. She wasn't supposed to be there. Not in this space, not on the 27th floor, not interrupting a multi-billion-dollar merger between Holt Capital and Vanguard Pacific. But there she stood, pointing directly at the contract on the long marble table. The one CEO Benjamin Holt was just about to sign. His pen hovered above the signature line. His silver hair glinted beneath the LED lights. Brows furrowed in deep confusion. Beside him, his wife Sabrina Holt shifted in her seat, looking at Natalie with wide, blinking eyes. Across the table sat Raymond Knox, the slick Texan from Vanguard, adjusting his cufflinks with an amused smirk. "I'm sorry," he said smoothly. "Is the cleaning crew giving legal opinions now?" Natalie didn't flinch. She didn't stammer. Page 14, Clause 6, Subsection C. It transfers all post-merger liabilities to Holt Capital. If anything goes wrong, fraud, legal action, financial collapse, your company eats it all. Vanguard walks away clean. Around the table, executives murmured. One leaned forward to flip pages. Another tapped his tablet, double-checking. Tension tightened the air like a pulled rubber band. "She's not even supposed to be in here," someone whispered. "She's the janitor's daughter," another muttered. And yet, no one asked her to leave. Not yet. Just 8 hours earlier, Natalie had been on her usual night shift. Hoodie, rubber gloves. Her mom, Rosa, vacuumed the executive wing while Natalie wiped smudges off glass and emptied trash bins in conference rooms. It was routine, quiet, unnoticed, until she saw it. A folder left in the copy tray, slightly ajar. Its cover read, "Final Draft, Merger Agreement." Something about it felt wrong. She couldn't explain it. It wasn't just curiosity, it was instinct. Natalie wasn't like most kids her age. While others watched viral dances or binge-watched shows, she studied financial crime documentaries with her grandfather and once wrote a school essay titled, "The Rise and Fall of Theranos." She opened the folder. Legal language spilled out in dense paragraphs. She skimmed quickly. Then she paused. Buried in legal jargon, hidden in subparagraph C was a clause, small, easy to overlook, but dangerous. It shifted all merger-related risk onto Holt Capital. It was a trap. "Mom," Natalie whispered in the hallway. "Have you ever seen a contract that just hands over a company like this?" Rosa didn't even turn around. "Natalie, stop touching their things." "But, no, you want us both fired? Clean, quiet, that's our job." Natalie bit her lip and went back to wiping down the whiteboard. But her mind kept running. Now, in the boardroom, that moment echoed in her memory. Rosa's voice, the folder, the clause, and Benjamin Holt, still holding the pen. "You're saying this clause flips liability?" Benjamin said slowly, evenly. "Yes, sir," Natalie replied. "It's written to confuse, buried beneath standard language, but it puts your company on the hook for anything that happens after the merger." Sabrina Holt let out a sharp breath. This is absurd. She's a child. But Benjamin wasn't listening to her. He flipped the pages. His eyes scanned the lines. Paused. His jaw tightened. Raymond Knox leaned forward, fake smile still in place. "We're really going to delay a historic deal because the janitor's kid read a contract?" Natalie's cheeks flushed, but her voice didn't waver. "You can ignore me, but if he signs that paper, Holt Capital's name is on every lawsuit that follows." A long pause. Then Benjamin lowered the pen. "Escort her out," he said quietly. 2 security guards moved forward. Natalie didn't resist. She walked calmly, steady. But just before the glass doors closed behind her, she turned. And for one brief moment, just a second, Benjamin Holt didn't see a janitor's daughter. He saw the warning. He saw what almost happened. And he did not sign the paper. The next morning, Holt Capital felt different. Not peaceful, but tight, like the air had shifted. Downstairs, in a security waiting room, Natalie sat next to her mother, hands clasped tightly, heart pounding. No one spoke to them. No one offered water. They'd been pulled from the night shift and told to wait. "I'm sorry," Natalie whispered finally. Rosa stared ahead. "You should be," she said quietly. "I cleaned that building to keep food on our table, not so you can sneak into boardrooms." "I didn't mean to embarrass you," Natalie said, "but that contract, it was dangerous. I raised you to be strong," Rosa replied, not reckless. Before Natalie could say anything more, the door opened. A woman in a gray blazer and a Holt Capital badge stepped in. Clipboard in hand, she didn't look at Natalie. "Mrs. Reyes, you are placed on leave. Pending internal review. We'll be in contact." Rosa stood, gripping Natalie's wrist. "Let's go." Outside, the Chicago air was sharp and cold. Natalie looked up at the glass tower they had just exited. She had hoped to change something. Now she wasn't even allowed inside. 30 floors above, Benjamin Holt sat alone in his office. The contract lay open. He stared at the clause Natalie had pointed out. It wasn't just misleading, it was calculated. Polished. A legal landmine. He rubbed his forehead. How the hell did I miss this? In his mind, Sabrina's voice echoed from last night. "It's standard. Just sign it." But something felt off now. The more he read, the worse it looked. He opened his laptop, cross-referenced other deals from Vanguard Pacific. Legal patterns, corporate shell trails. It was too clean, too coordinated. His phone buzzed. "Sabrina." He picked up. "You didn't sign it, did you?" she asked quickly. "No. You're overthinking. We vetted the deal. You're letting some teenager rattle you." "She caught something none of us did," Benjamin replied. Sabrina laughed, low and sweet. "Come on. She's 16. The janitor's daughter. I'm starting to think she's the only one in that room who actually read it." Silence. "I'm coming up," she said, and ended the call. Across town, Natalie sat on the worn couch in their apartment. A cold mug of cocoa rested beside her. Her mother sat at the kitchen table, scrolling job listings in silence. "Do you regret it?" Natalie asked softly. Rosa sighed. "I regret that grown-ups don't do the jobs they're supposed to." Natalie didn't argue, but something deep inside her said she wasn't wrong. Then her phone buzzed. An email. From someone named Alan Richter. Subject: "You were right. Want to talk?" Natalie stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. The message was short. "I used to work there. I know what you saw. If you're still looking for the truth, I can help." She began to type back. Because maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone. That night, Natalie couldn't sleep. Her inbox now held 6 more emails, 2 anonymous. One from a burner account, and one from someone claiming to be a former accountant at Vanguard Pacific. Each message hinted at something larger. A pattern, a past, a string of corporate mergers that had quietly ended in financial collapse for one side and massive profit for the other. And each one had the same name buried somewhere: Raymond Knox. By morning, she had compiled the messages into a folder labeled Pattern. Then came the package. A small brown envelope slid under their apartment door. Her mother picked it up. "Natalie?" Rosa called. She opened it. Inside, a flash drive and a sticky note. "Check page 12. Subpoint D. Houston, Dallas, Seattle. Same playbook." The flash drive lit up the second she plugged it into the family's old laptop. Contracts. Dozens of them. Old merger agreements, nearly identical to the one she had seen at Holt Capital. Same structure, same language, in all 3. The same pattern. The other firm, Raymond Knox's firm, walked away clean. And the target company? Buried in debt, lawsuits, and silence. Her stomach turned. She highlighted the sections, compared terms, took notes. Whoever sent this knew what they were doing. Elsewhere in the city, Benjamin Holt was doing his own digging. He sat in the quiet of his personal study, papers spread out like a forensic map. At the center, Vanguard Pacific, and a man he once considered a trusted business ally, Raymond Knox. He opened a drawer and pulled out a manila file, one he hadn't looked at in years. Internal Risk Review, Holt Capital. Signed at the bottom, Alan Richter. The same name from Natalie's email. He flipped through the old pages. Notes in red pen. A section highlighted, risk exposure too centralized. Knox's firms use liability inversion clauses. One wrong signature and Holt takes the fall. Benjamin sat back. She had been right. The janitor's daughter had seen what no one else did, not even his own board. His phone buzzed. Sabrina again. He ignored it. Instead, he made another call. Victoria Chan. A voice answered. Miss Chan. Benjamin said, I need legal eyes, discreet ones. This could be bigger than just fraud. Across town, Natalie was watching something, too. A live stream. The Holt Foundation Charity Gala. That night, everyone who mattered would be there. Executives, politicians, even Sabrina Holt, known for running the show each year like a queen presiding over her court. And Natalie had a plan. She pulled out the flash drive and slipped it into a small envelope. Then she wrote a note. Look again. She knew. Page 14 was just the start. She didn't know if it would work. But it had to. Inside the gold-draped ballroom, Sabrina glided through guests like silk. Her navy gown shimmered under the chandeliers. Wine glass in hand, laughter on her lips. But Benjamin wasn't smiling. He took the stage to make the opening remarks. His voice was steady, measured. Before we begin tonight's program, I want to say something, not as a CEO, but as a man who almost made a very costly mistake. Chatter faded. I nearly signed a contract that would have sunk this company. Not because I was careless, but because I trusted people who didn't earn it. Across the room, Sabrina's smile faltered. Someone stopped me. Benjamin continued. Someone no one expected to. And tonight, I want you all to know, Holt Capital is not for sale. Not to lies, not to polished smiles, and not to those who hide behind fine print. Gasps fluttered across the ballroom. Sabrina turned sharply toward the stage. But Benjamin was already stepping down. He'd said what he came to say. Back home, Natalie watched the clip online. Her breath caught in her throat. Her mom sat beside her, silent. Then, slowly, she reached over and squeezed Natalie's hand. Whatever happens next, Rosa said, you did something right. Natalie exhaled. But her phone buzzed again. A text. No name, no number. Just 5 words. Stop now, or we won't. Later that night, Benjamin's laptop lit up with another alert. Unauthorized access attempt. From inside the company, someone tried to move funds, millions, from a dormant reserve account. He locked it down just in time. The access point? Sabrina's ID. He sat in the darkness, jaw clenched, trying not to believe what he already knew. It wasn't just Knox. It was his wife. Meanwhile, Natalie sat hunched over her laptop, cross-referencing the names from the documents. There it was. Sabrina Holt, linked to a dormant offshore trust. British Virgin Islands, Cayman, Zurich. Her breath caught. She's in on it, she whispered. Not just unaware, involved. Across town, in a rooftop bar behind frosted glass, Sabrina laughed lightly, drink in hand. Sitting across from her, Raymond Knox. He slid her a flash drive. You said he's starting to dig. He murmured. He is, she replied, her voice smooth. But don't worry, I'm still inside. Knox smirked. Then let's keep it that way. Back at Natalie's apartment, a new message arrived. From Alan Richter. Look into Sabrina's spending. Trust account. Frequent wire transfers. She's not just his wife. She's his inside woman. Natalie opened a government database. And there it was. Wire logs, public filings, all of them whispered the same truth. Sabrina Holt wasn't just part of the company. She was part of the scheme. And suddenly, this wasn't just about contracts anymore. It was about betrayal. And Natalie Reyes, the girl no one had noticed, was about to be noticed by everyone. The next morning, the halls of Holt Capital buzzed with attention no one could name aloud, but everyone felt. Benjamin Holt sat in his glass-walled office. Blinds drawn, a thick folder open in front of him. Beside it, a tablet with screenshots, offshore transfers, encrypted emails, and a flagged document, Sabrina's digital signature approving a wire to an entity known only as Meriton Holdings. His phone buzzed. It was Victoria Chan. They're getting sloppy, she said. Whoever's cleaning up is rushing now. And the DOJ? Benjamin asked. They're watching quietly, Victoria said. But they'll need a visible thread to follow. Right now, all we have is smoke. Benjamin glanced toward a printed transcript sitting beside him, Natalie's anonymous tip. Then to another document from our, confirming that Sabrina had accessed 3 restricted legal files at 2 a.m. the previous night. I've got a thread, he said. Her name is Natalie Reyes. Natalie, meanwhile, sat in the corner of a small diner 2 blocks from her apartment, sipping lukewarm coffee while her eyes scanned the latest batch of files that Alan Richter had emailed her. She had expected to find connections. She hadn't expected a pattern. Knox Capital, Meriton Holdings, Blakely Ventures, each one different on paper. But the language? Identical. Every single merger Knox touched ended the same way. She highlighted the keywords again: indemnification, shifted liability, deferred debt assumption, legal camouflage, and each document, signed off, in part, by Sabrina Holt. A slow, cold realization settled in her stomach. She's laundering these deals, Natalie whispered, voice tight. She's the pipeline. Then her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown contact. If you're willing to meet, I can explain the rest. Lobby of the Preston Hotel. Noon. Come alone. She hesitated. Could be a trap. But if it wasn't? She took a deep breath, closed her laptop, and texted one word back. Coming. Meanwhile, in a conference room at Holt Capital, Benjamin stood before his top executives. He didn't sugarcoat it. There's been a breach, he said, not in our systems, in our trust. He dropped a stack of documents on the table. I have reason to believe Sabrina has been moving funds, illegally. A murmur swept through the room. One board member stood. That's a serious allegation. I'm not here to make accusations, Benjamin said. I'm here to show you proof. He tapped his tablet. The screen behind him filled with graphs, transfer records, timestamps, and the person who uncovered this, he added, is a 16-year-old girl named Natalie Reyes. Silence. Then another voice. You're taking the word of a janitor's kid? No, Benjamin replied. I'm taking the word of the one person who actually read the damn contract. At exactly 12:03 p.m., Natalie stepped into the marble lobby of the Preston Hotel. A man in a faded blazer and glasses waved her over from a bench in the corner. He looked tired, worn, but alert. You're Natalie? He asked. She nodded. Alan Richter? He nodded back. I used to be legal counsel for Knox's firm, he said, until I questioned one of his settlements. And? Natalie asked. I was gone the next day. NDA, severance check, and a quiet warning to stay gone. He handed her a manila envelope. Inside, signed statements, internal memos, one flagged contract with Sabrina Holt's initials beside a note. Shift liability here. Keep Vanguard clear. That's her handwriting, Alan said. And this, he pulled out a USB drive, is audio, one of the board meetings. Knox explaining the shell game. Natalie's fingers trembled as she took it. This is dangerous, she whispered. He gave a dry smile. So is silence. Back at Holt Capital, Sabrina sat alone in her corner office, sipping a glass of wine at noon and staring at her reflection in the window. Her assistant entered. Ben canceled your 1 p.m. with Vanguard, she said softly. Sabrina turned slowly. Why? He didn't say, but she knew. She picked up her phone and dialed Knox. It's unraveling, she said. Then tie it up, he replied. Any loose ends? One girl, the janitor's daughter. Knox was quiet for a beat. Then, handle it. That night, Natalie slipped the USB drive into her laptop and hit play. The audio hissed, then settled. Raymond Knox's voice came through, smooth and arrogant. We shift the debt, make the target eat the liability. Sabrina signs off on the internal memo, clean hands. If anything explodes, Holt takes the hit. Another voice laughed. That's 2 empires sunk the same way. And Sabrina gets her slice. The room on the tape erupted in low chuckles. Natalie sat frozen. She clicked stop. Then she backed up the file 5 times, printed a transcript, saved everything to a cloud vault. The truth was no longer hers alone. Meanwhile, Benjamin stood alone on his rooftop terrace, phone to his ear. She has the file, he told Victoria. And the girl? She asked. She's ready. Then we move tomorrow, Victoria said. I'll file the injunction and bring it to the state attorney. Benjamin hung up. And across the city, in the backseat of a sleek black SUV, Sabrina stared out the tinted glass. Her jaw clenched. "We should have buried this sooner," she muttered. Knox's voice came through her earpiece. "Then do it now." The next morning, Natalie Reyes sat in the back of a city bus, a manila envelope clutched tight to her chest. At the next stop, she'd get off and walk the final block to the state attorney's office. She would hand over every file, every recording, and she would not walk alone. Across the street, a second figure stepped off another bus, Benjamin Holt. Behind him, Victoria Chan. Justice was coming, and this time, the girl with the mop bucket was leading it. The state attorney's office was an imposing gray tower, its revolving doors spinning with urgency. But today, they didn't feel cold to Natalie, as she walked through with Benjamin Holt and Victoria Chan at her side. The fear didn't vanish, but it changed. It wasn't paralyzing anymore, it was fuel. A security guard paused them. "She's with us," Victoria said, holding up her badge. The guard nodded them through. In the elevator, Natalie glanced at Benjamin. "You ever get used to this?" "No," he said honestly. "But you learn to stop flinching." Victoria smiled faintly. "That's when they start flinching." When the doors opened, they were met by Deputy State Attorney Marcus Dre. He was tall, gray-haired, and wore the kind of expression that said he'd seen everything twice and still wasn't impressed. But when Natalie handed him the folder and the USB drive, something in his eyes shifted. "This is substantial," he murmured, flipping through the documents. "Confirmed wire transfers," Victoria said, tapping the page. "3 failed mergers, false liability clauses. Sabrina Holt's signature is on every one." "And the voice in the audio?" he asked. Natalie nodded. "Raymond Knox." Dre looked at them, then pointed toward a side conference room. "Let's talk. If we move on this, it won't be quiet." Victoria stepped forward. "We're done being quiet." Elsewhere in the city, Sabrina sat in her office, watching the news with a glass of water in her hand that trembled ever so slightly. The ticker along the bottom of the screen read, "Merger between Holt Capital and Vanguard Energy under investigation." Below it, anonymous sources cite whistleblower evidence of financial misconduct. Sabrina muted the TV. Her heart was pounding. Her phone buzzed. Knox. She didn't answer. Instead, she dialed someone else. "Derek," she whispered when he picked up. "You shouldn't have called me," he said curtly. "They're coming. I need leverage. I gave you leverage. You burned it. I need a new plan." There was silence on the line. Then a low voice said, "You're on your own." The call ended, and for the first time in years, Sabrina felt what she had made others feel for so long: expendable. At home that night, Natalie sat on her bed, laptop open, headphones on. The recording played again and again. Every time, she heard more. Knox's voice, the laugh of a man in the room, Sabrina's calm suggestions. Her heart pounded. She knew what this meant. If the state moved forward, it wouldn't be a hearing, it would be a storm. But the door opened and her mother stepped in, holding 2 cups of tea. "You okay?" Denise asked. Natalie nodded slowly. "I think so. I don't know what you got yourself into. But whatever it is, I'm proud of you." Natalie looked up. "Even if it gets messy?" Her mom smiled. "Especially then." The next morning, Benjamin stood at the front of the Holt Capital press conference, flanked by Victoria and Marcus Dre. Microphones lined the podium. Reporters leaned forward. Cameras rolled. "I want to begin by addressing the rumors," Benjamin said, voice calm and direct. "They're true." A murmur broke out. He raised a hand. "We have discovered internal misconduct that threatens not just this company, but our partners and investors. One of our executives helped funnel liability from failed mergers directly onto our books while insulating third parties. That executive was Sabrina Holt." The room went silent. "She's my sister," Benjamin continued, "and she betrayed the values our father built this firm on. But the person who exposed this wasn't a regulator or a board member, it was Natalie Reyes, a 16-year-old girl whose mother works as a night cleaner in this very building." Now the reporters gasped. Victoria stepped forward. She noticed a clause that none of us saw. She asked a question we all ignored. And now, we're asking the questions she dared to first. In her office, Sabrina slammed her fist on the desk. The press conference was on every screen. She could hear Benjamin's voice echo through the walls. Natalie's name. The company turning on her. Everything unraveling. She picked up her phone and dialed Knox again. Still no answer. Desperate, she opened her safe and pulled out a black binder, Plan C. Inside were copies of old communications, emergency contacts, and a single burner phone. She dialed a number. A voice answered after 2 rings. "You need an extraction?" "No," Sabrina said through clenched teeth. "I need someone gone." That night, Natalie stayed late at the state attorney's office. Marcus had insisted on personal security detail. Just in case. She sat beside Victoria, going over the next steps. "You know, you don't have to testify," Victoria said. "We can protect your name." "I want to," Natalie said. Victoria studied her. "Why?" Natalie didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Because I'm tired of the people who do the right thing getting ignored. And because if I don't say it, who will?" Victoria nodded. "Then I'll make sure your voice echoes." At midnight, a black SUV pulled up across from Natalie's building. Inside, a man in a dark coat stared at the photo on his phone. Natalie. Stepping out of the attorney's office, he reached for the door handle. But before he could exit, 2 other cars pulled up, blocking the SUV on both ends. Flashlights, badges, federal task force. Someone shouted, "Step out of the vehicle." The man was arrested without a struggle. In a black sedan nearby, Marcus Dre lowered his binoculars. They made their move. Victoria, in the passenger seat, smiled. "And now it's our turn." The next morning, the Chicago Tribune ran the story. Teen whistleblower thwarts corporate retaliation attempt. Feds intercept alleged threat against Natalie Reyes. Natalie stared at her name in print, still unsure if it felt real. At the breakfast table, her mom poured her coffee. "No more flying under the radar." "Huh?" she said. Natalie smiled softly. "Not anymore." She checked her phone. A new message from Benjamin Holt. "Testimony is scheduled. You ready?" Natalie typed back. "Let's finish this." In courtroom 22B, the proceedings began. Natalie sat behind the prosecution's table, Victoria at her side. Across from them, Sabrina Holt sat with her lawyer. Stone-faced, the judge entered. "All rise." This time, Natalie didn't feel like a kid in over her head. She felt like a witness. And she had a story to tell. The courtroom was silent as Natalie walked to the witness stand. No rustle of papers, no whispers. Just the echo of her footsteps and the click of the microphone as she sat and adjusted it. Her hands didn't shake. Not this time. Victoria Chan stood and approached the stand with calm authority. "State your name for the record." "Natalie Reyes." "And your age?" 16. A few reporters at the back of the courtroom exchanged glances. This was no ordinary witness. No expert in a suit or whistleblower in hiding. Just a teenage girl in a modest gray blazer. Her hair tied back in a braid. Victoria nodded. "Natalie, can you tell the court how you came across the documents in question?" Natalie took a deep breath. "I was working the night shift with my mom. She's on the cleaning staff at Holt Capital. We were assigned to the 27th floor. There was a folder left in the printer tray marked, 'Final Draft, Merger Agreement.' I wasn't trying to snoop, but the page on top caught my eye. And what did you notice? It was the way the liability clause was written. I don't know all the legal terms, but I'd read about contracts like that. The language shifted responsibility in a way that didn't make sense. Like it was meant to look normal, but it wasn't." Victoria smiled gently. "Did you show anyone?" "I showed my mom. She told me to leave it alone. But I couldn't. So the next day, I went to the boardroom. I stopped Mr. Holt from signing it." There was a stir in the courtroom. Murmurs of disbelief that a teenager had walked into one of Chicago's most powerful boardrooms and stopped a multi-million-dollar deal. Victoria leaned closer. "Natalie, why did you speak up? You knew it could cost your mom her job. Maybe even put you in danger." Natalie looked across the courtroom. "Right at Sabrina. Because I've watched people like her make decisions that hurt people like us for too long. And they do it behind closed doors. No one ever says anything. I didn't want to be one of the people who stayed silent." There was a pause. Then Victoria stepped back. "No further questions, Your Honor." The judge turned to the defense. Sabrina's attorney, a polished man with an expensive watch and cold eyes, rose from his seat. He approached with a condescending smile. Miss Reyes, you say you're 16? Yes. You're not trained in law, correct? No. You've never taken a business class? No, sir. So when you say this clause didn't make sense, that's just your opinion? Natalie didn't flinch. It's an opinion that turned out to be right. A soft chuckle rippled through the courtroom. The lawyer's smile faded. Did you intend to interfere with the merger? No. Then why insert yourself into something clearly above your understanding? Natalie raised her chin. Because if I didn't, this company would have fallen for a lie and blamed the wrong people for it. The attorney stepped back, frustrated. Nothing further. As Natalie stepped down from the stand, Benjamin Holt gave her a quiet nod from the gallery. She returned to her seat next to Victoria, who whispered, "You just changed the temperature of this whole room." That afternoon, the prosecution presented the recording. Sabrina's voice echoed through the speakers, calm, calculated. He won't question it, not if I push at the right time. Then Knox's deeper voice followed. And if he does, we remind him what he has to lose. Gasps filled the courtroom. Sabrina didn't blink, but the color had drained from her face. Victoria stepped forward. This is not just about bad business. This is about calculated fraud, intimidation, and attempted retaliation against a minor. Sabrina Holt used her position not to protect Holt Capital, but to protect her own interests and those of an outside associate with a history of predatory mergers. Victoria held up a sheet with names, wire routes, and account details. All confirmed, all traced, all real. Across town, Knox sat in a hotel suite watching the live feed on his laptop. His drink trembled in his hand. They weren't supposed to catch this, he muttered. A knock on the door. He opened it cautiously. 2 federal agents stood there. Raymond Knox? One of them asked. Yes, you're under arrest. Step back, please. Knox didn't fight. He just looked past them, as if expecting Sabrina to suddenly appear and stop this. But she didn't. He was led away in handcuffs. Back in the courtroom, Benjamin Holt took the stand. He adjusted his tie and cleared his throat. 3 weeks ago, I was ready to sign a deal that would have destroyed this company. And I didn't know it. I had trusted the wrong people, including my own sister. He looked down, shame heavy in his voice. I owe Natalie Reyes more than gratitude. I owe her a future, because she just saved all of ours. That night, the city didn't sleep. Headlines flashed across every news channel. Teen witness rocks Chicago finance world. Sabrina Holt under investigation for corporate fraud. Merger halted by janitor's daughter. Natalie sat in her bedroom, reading every word, but she wasn't smiling. She was thinking of what came next. Meanwhile, at a detention center on the outskirts of the city, Sabrina sat alone in an interrogation room. A prosecutor dropped a thick folder on the table. We know about the shell accounts. We know about Knox. But here's what we want. Who else was involved? Sabrina didn't look up. You think I'll flip? The prosecutor leaned forward. You're already falling. A long pause. Then Sabrina spoke, her voice low and cold. Fine, but if I go down, I'm not going alone. The final day of the trial arrived under a heavy gray sky, and the air around the courthouse buzzed with the tension of something irreversible. News vans parked along the street, their satellite dishes aimed upward, reporters rehearsing their scripts as if readying for war coverage. Inside, courtroom 7B filled fast, lawyers, reporters, corporate representatives, and citizens who had followed the case closely. At the center sat Natalie Reyes, calm but alert, her mother at her side, holding her hand beneath the table. On the opposite side, Sabrina Holt sat in a tailored gray pantsuit, no longer polished, just pale. The pressure had worn into the sharp edges of her face. Judge Lambert entered, his voice steady. This court is now in session. The prosecution moved first. Victoria Chan stood, her voice measured. Your Honor, we move to introduce a final exhibit. A recording between Ms. Holt and Mr. Knox, entered into evidence just last night. The defense objected, but the judge allowed it. The courtroom speakers crackled. Sabrina. Natalie's digging too close. She's already flagged the trust fund. Knox. So we ruin her. Simple. File a school complaint. Mess with her mom's shift schedule. Make them disappear quietly. Sabrina. Benjamin still trusts her. That's the problem. knocks. Then make him doubt. Or force his hand. The courtroom went still. Even the court stenographer paused. Sabrina's attorney sat frozen, realizing there was no longer a defense to make. Victoria didn't need to say another word. The damage was done. The prosecution rested. The judge dismissed the jury for deliberation. And in just under 3 hours, they returned, faces solemn. Verdict sealed in their eyes. All rise. The foreperson stood. On the count of conspiracy to commit corporate fraud. Guilty. On the count of tampering with legal documents. Guilty. On the count of witness intimidation. Guilty. Sabrina's jaw tightened, but her eyes remained forward. No tears. No apology. Just silence. Judge Lambert leaned forward. You used your position to betray trust, endanger your employees, and attempt to sabotage the life of a minor who did nothing but tell the truth. Then came the sentencing. 10 years in federal custody. No chance of parole before 7. A lifetime ban from serving on the board of any publicly traded company. Gasps echoed. Sabrina blinked once but didn't speak. Natalie exhaled. The courtroom murmured with disbelief and relief. Justice had spoken. Later that evening, Benjamin Holt stood before a press conference in the marble lobby of Holt Capital. This time without his sister at his side. Cameras flashed. Reporters jostled for space. I nearly signed a contract that would have dismantled everything we've built. But one voice stopped me, a 16-year-old girl, the daughter of a janitor, who saw what none of us did. He turned to his right. Natalie stood beside him, a bit nervous under the spotlight but proud. And because of her, we're not just rebuilding, we're rethinking everything. Benjamin held up a folder. Starting today, I'm launching the Reyes Fellowship Program, full college scholarships for working-class students with a passion for ethics, leadership, and public service. The applause that followed was real. Even a few of the reporters clapped. That night, Natalie returned home to their small apartment to find the mailbox stuffed with letters. Some from students, some from parents, some from employees she didn't even know. Most said the same thing. Thank you for speaking up when no one else did. Natalie sat on the fire escape under the blinking lights of Chicago's skyline. Her mom brought her tea, sat beside her, and for the first time in weeks, Denise smiled. You're not just my daughter, she whispered. You're my hero. Natalie didn't cry. She just nodded and looked out at the horizon. Meanwhile, far away in a white-collar federal facility in Pennsylvania, Sabrina Holt sat in a concrete-walled cell, her designer shoes gone, her title stripped, her empire reduced to a series of regrets. A television mounted in the hallway played the news. She heard her name. She heard Natalie's name. And then she heard the word she could never reclaim. Legacy. Back in Chicago, Holt Capital was transforming. Gone were the secret handshakes and whispered backroom deals. Benjamin had hired Victoria Chan to head the company's new ethics division. And on the 27th floor, Natalie returned, not as a visitor or the janitor's daughter, but as a guest speaker for the firm's interns. She stood before them, confident. You don't need a title to matter, she said. You just need to pay attention and speak up when it counts. The room erupted in applause. A month later, Natalie received a letter. It wasn't from a college. It wasn't from a lawyer. It was handwritten, in neat, looping script, from someone who once worked inside Vaughn Equity Group. It read, "There's more. This wasn't the first scheme. And it won't be the last unless someone keeps digging." Attached was a single business card. No name. Just a phone number and a line. If you're still brave, call. Natalie stared at the card for a long moment. Then she smiled, and slipped it into her notebook. Because the truth wasn't done. And neither was she. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Tell Night. At Tell Night, stories remind us that healing begins with hope. And even the gentlest kindness can rewrite a destiny. Don't forget to tap the bell so you never miss a story that could brighten your day, or transform your perspective. Until our next story, keep your heart open and your spirit brave.